Welcome to the CEO Insider Podcast, brought to you by YTexas. My name is Sandy McElroy. Our guest today is the president and CEO of the Dallas Regional Chamber, Dale Petroskey. Dale's career includes service as Assistant White House Press Secretary to President Ronald Reagan. He was Senior Vice President for Mission Programs for National Geographic for 12 years, and for 9 years he was the President of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. In the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to cover a lot of ground with Dale, including his thoughts on the life of President George H.W. Bush, what we can learn from not getting the Amazon contract, why more and more businesses are relocating to the Dallas area. He also shares with us a fantastic Yogi Berra story. And if you aren't following the Dallas Mavericks, why you should be, and one particular player to keep your eye on. Enjoy this episode of the CEO Insider Podcast, brought to you by YTexas, with the president and CEO of the Dallas Regional Chamber, Dale Petroskey. Hey, Dale, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks, Andy.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us here on the CEO Insider Podcast, brought to you by YTexas. We've got a lot of stuff to cover with you, but as in fact, at the time of this recording right now, the country is going through the funeral services of our 41st president, George H.W. Bush, and I know that you worked for Ronald Reagan. And you know new President Bush very, very well. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on a day like today and looking back at your relationship with both of those men.
Well, on a day like today, you're flooded with memories. Mm-hmm. And when I think of President George H.W. Bush, I just think of the human moments. I mean, you know, he was a great, of course, political leader. He was a great foreign policy president, but I think back to the times when we just had fun talking baseball and being in baseball situations together and joking around and just a wonderful, wonderful human being. The decency, the compassion, always wanted everybody around him to be happy. Just brought a really positive ray of sunshine wherever he was, and so. You know, it's sort of a bittersweet day, but I took time off this morning from work. I went home, and I watched the whole funeral from start to finish, and it was just a great remembrance of what's important in life. You know, that what's important is, yeah, you got to do good work, and you got to do important work, but it's about the people. It's about being good to other people and extending a hand of friendship and kindness. And I think that's probably his lasting legacy.
I think you're probably right. And I think in the country that we're in today, I think we can look back on the presidency and the man and learn a lot from the things that George Bush, what he stood for.
What I took away from the funeral today is there was a lesson not just for every political leader in the country, but for every person in the country. You don't have to be the president of the United States to be kind. You don't have to be president of the United States to reach out. You don't have to be president of the United States to give back.
Right.
And he did all those things from a very lofty perch. But anybody can do those things and make the world a better place. And he gave us a great example of that.
You mentioned talking baseball with President Bush, and I'm a baseball guy too. And there's nothing more fun than talking baseball. I think people love to talk about baseball as much as they love to watch it and look at the stats and the numbers. And I know you're a baseball guy, having spent time working at the Hall of Fame and working with the Hall of Famers. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I had 9 years in Cooperstown. Yes.
Wow. I went there in I guess it was 1997. I was living in Syracuse, New York. I had a Saturday afternoon with nothing to do, and I thought, you know what I'll do? I'm just going to go to the Hall of Fame.
What'd you think?
I was blown away by it. I really was. I think of all of the Hall of Fames, that's the one. You know, that is the one if you're a sports fan.
No question. Yeah, and I got there in 99, so just a couple of years after you. And we did a $20 million renovation during my time there, and So it's a different place now. You ought to go back and see it again.
Well, I will. And before I go, I'll call you and ask you to give me some free tickets.
Okay, I think I can do that for you.
I understand, that you spent time with the Hall of Famers, keeping them in the loop with what's going on there at the Baseball Hall of Fame. And everybody loves Yogi Berra, and he was one of your favorites. I wonder, though, do you think that Yogi Berra would be Yogi Berra today if it wasn't for Joe Garagiola?
Probably not. Probably not. Joe was his mouthpiece and his spokesman, and growing up in St. Louis together and being two Italian catchers, sort of the same era. And Joe had the great personality to go on the air and tell stories. And, they were, they're very much like President Bush and Secretary Baker. I mean, one would not have been one without the other.
Right.
Baker never would have been who he was without George Bush. George Bush would have never been who he was without Jim Baker. So I think that's an interesting juxtaposition, Yogi and Garagiola and Baker and Bush. But, I think there's a lot of that goes on in life. There's a lot of, sort of two halves of the whole.
Two halves
to make each other better.
Right. It was great of Garagiola because guys like me, Yogi was before me. But watching the game of the week, back when they had the game of the week, and Joe would tell the Yogi stories, and I would just laugh. And my dad, being a New York guy, I'd go in and I'd hit him with one of Yogi's. No one goes to the ball game anymore; it's too crowded, type of thing. And we've always had a really good laugh about that.
Yeah. So let me tell you a Yogi story. Do we have time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we're at an opening of an event in New York City. And I'm with Phil Rizzuto and his wife Cora, and Yogi and his wife Carmen, and we're having a drink. And this little old lady comes up to us, and she is beside herself. She is so excited to meet Yogi Berra. Oh my God, I can't believe that I'm meeting Yogi Berra. And she says, "You're the greatest player who ever played." And Yogi, if you knew Yogi, he's very shy. He's kind of looking down at his shoes. He's really not very comfortable being lauded like this. And finally, she says, "Well, I've got to be going now." And she walked away. And as soon as she got out of earshot, Carmen leaned into us and she says, "She must have forgotten about Joe DiMaggio." So good. Yogi just cracked up. But Carmen took the, she used the moment for a little humor. It was fun.
Oh, I love it. Well, what do you think about Texas sports right now and how they drive business and the economy? What's your thoughts on how well Texas sports are doing and what they contribute to the economy of the state of Texas?
Well, sports are always big, and of course, we love our sports in Texas, and whether it's Dallas or Houston or San Antonio. And I think sports is sort of woven into the fabric of life. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we try to recruit companies to the Dallas area, one of the big selling points is we're a major league city. I mean, we've got the Cowboys, Rangers, Mavs and Stars, FC Dallas, and so, it sort of puts you on the map. It gives everybody something to rally around. And I think it's important just to the life of things. And here's another interesting thing. When the Cowboys were not doing well, of course, everybody is complaining, and nobody's very happy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they catch fire. The whole town's behind them. Everybody's talking about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. But so if you have a good team and a team that's winning, I think it's a great part of the community.
Yeah, that was one of the great things that I loved about living in Dallas was that any day or not evening of the week, you could go see big league sports, whether it was when it was baseball season, hockey season, or during the football season. It was there for you. That's one of the things I loved. A lot of things about living in Dallas, but that was certainly one of them. You mentioned recruiting businesses to the Dallas area. Can we talk about the Amazon relocation process and what, if anything, two questions really. What did we learn from it, and how close did we come to getting it?
Well, first of all, we are the Dallas Regional Chamber were the ones who coordinated the whole bid.
Oh.
working with all of our partner chambers and others. But we were the one organization that coordinated and led the effort. So we learned a lot. We knew a lot, but we learned a lot, and we had a great opportunity to put our best foot forward. We got a great story to tell here, because in the last 8 years, 126 companies have moved their headquarters here. So there's no other place in America that can say that. 750,000 new jobs in the last 8 years. But what we learned is, I think, that we've got a great product to sell. And when it came down to it in the end, we probably finished third. We know we were definitely in the top four. We probably finished third. And but we also, there are some things that, despite all of our advantages, we still need to work on. We need to work on a tech workforce. We're number 7 in the country, but we're the number 4 market. So, we should be number 4 at least. We probably could do a better job of green space here and things that might attract younger, talented workers here. And so those are the kinds of things you come out of it with and say, came really close. Probably, if you equate it to March Madness, we made it to the Final Four and lost in overtime in the semifinal game. But what did we learn from that so we can win the championship next year? Not that we're not winning championships. In the last couple of months, 2 more Fortune 500 companies have announced that their headquarters are coming here.
Yeah,
Cormark out of San Francisco. You probably know this. And then McKesson. I give a trivia question to the people I talked to this week, which is this. Name the biggest American company who in the last month announced that they were moving their headquarters somewhere else, okay? And everybody says it's Amazon. I said, nope, Amazon's number 8. McKesson's number 6, and they announced they're moving to Dallas.
Right. They're going
McKesson is bigger than Amazon.
Right, and they're going to be located in the Las Colinas area, correct?
That's right, yes.
Wow.
Yep.
See, that's a good thing to know. It's one of those things where Amazon gets all the run, they get all the headlines, and and Dallas doesn't get the bid, but things work out okay because companies like McKesson were sitting on the sidelines a little bit, waiting to see what they did, right?
A lot of people were circling, waiting to see if Amazon was going to land. And when Amazon didn't land here, they're going to land here. So, we've got such a great business climate to sell, and people know that. And you probably saw the Wall Street Journal story when it said it's down to 3, with Northern Virginia and then Long Island and Dallas. Well, that was helpful because other companies that are looking to move see that and say, wow, Dallas must be pretty special.
What about Nexstar purchasing Tribune out of Chicago? There seems to be a lot going on in the healthcare-related industries, and a lot of it going on in Irving.
Yeah, there's a lot of business going on in Irving. Irving's a great pro-business, pro-growth area close to the airport. And so they're always going to be a very desirable place for companies to land.
Right. What other major industries does the Chamber have its eyes on for corporate relocation? Is there much else coming down the pike?
Yes, there's always a lot of activity. I'll tell you a little story, Sandy. I was at a meeting of Chamber presidents a couple of years ago, and they went around the table talking about what are the things that worry them or what are the things they're dealing with that are challenging. And almost every Chamber president was saying, I worry about losing companies. People are moving out. And a little light bulb went on for me. I've never for 1 minute worried about a company moving out of Dallas. We are dealing with companies that want to move in.
Right.
And so we are in the enviable position of being in a place that everybody wants to come to. So we feel really good about what's happening here and about the future.
It makes you wonder if the people that are losing the companies, let's just say it in California, it makes them probably really wonder, oh my gosh, what do we need to do to stop the bleeding here? What is Dallas doing that we're not to lure or keep these companies?
No question about it. I mean, I don't know that California has figured it out yet. It gets down to cost of doing business, right, and taxes and regulations and the quality of life for your employees and things like that. And so at some point they probably will, but probably half of the companies that have moved here have come from California.
Wow, it's amazing. Amazing. Well, the mission of YTexas is to help new companies get connected in Texas. I was wondering if you had any good examples of companies he has recruited that have really integrated well into the state and into the culture.
Many companies, AT&T moved here in '08. They are an anchor downtown Dallas. Wonderful corporate citizen, and very involved with the chamber. Comerica Bank moved here in '07. Fantastic. And more recently, Toyota moved here in 2014, and they could not be a better community member. First thing, I'll never forget this. Their first press conference, they gave $1 million check to the school district in Plano.
Wow.
And then they turned over 6 new vehicles to the police and fire department. That was their first opening shot at their first press conference, and we thought, this is going to be good. And they have not stopped ever since. They're just fantastic supporters of the entire community. Hilti is another company that moved here in 2014,
right.
And they make big tools for big projects. So they, like a road construction project, they do the tools for that. And they're based out of Liechtenstein, and they just moved their U.S. headquarters here from Tulsa in 2014. Fantastically integrated into the community and a great supporter of the community. And then just in the last couple of years, Jacobs Engineering moved here from Pasadena, and they are a major Fortune 200 company in engineering and getting very involved in the community. And then Boeing last year moved, Boeing Global Services. They sort of have 3 branches to their senior leadership. They moved Boeing Global Services here, and they're becoming quite ingrained in the community. So all these companies, it just seems we're so lucky to have them because they get the culture of Dallas, which is you do good, you do well, and you do good. So let's do well as a company, but let's give back too. And every one of them seems to get that message.
Going back to your Toyota example, this story always stuck with me with Toyota about doing things right. I remember when they relocated some work and were opening up in San Antonio. And one of the first things that they did is they bought every single little league team in San Antonio new baseball uniforms.
Oh, wow. That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart, really, think about it.
It is. It had the little Toyota logo on it, brand new uniforms. And it's really smart thing to do.
You think the parents didn't take notice, and you don't think those kids, when they're growing up, have a good feeling for Toyota when they start to think about buying cars?
I know.
Very smart.
I know. I still remember the first sponsor of my Little League baseball team, Ganella's Fruit Stand.
Mine was an ice cream stand.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why we remember.
Twin Kiss.
But we remember it, right?
Yeah, you do.
The legislative session starts here next month. Are there any important items on the agenda that you feel CEOs need to know about and be engaged in?
Yeah, we are really, obviously, number one for us is economic development. Just making sure that we continue to have a pro-growth, pro-business climate, and that includes, obviously, taxes and regulations, but it also includes enough money for transportation to keep the growth going in Dallas and making sure that life is still good here with all the growth. Also, more funding for education, because we need a great workforce, and these kids deserve a great quality of life with all the prosperity going on around them. They need to be able to take part in it. And at the same time, we want to make sure this is a welcoming state. So we are always vigilant against things that will be discriminatory against any segment of population. We don't want to discriminate against anybody. We want to be welcoming to all. And so those are always the big things. The governor, I met with the governor recently. His 2 big priorities are school finance reform and property tax reform. And in fact, just this morning, I got invited by the governor to come see him on Monday with a few other folks, and I'm sure that's what he's going to want to talk about. So those are all the big issues that are sort of in front of us. And, legislative sessions are challenging. And we work them really hard just to make sure that we can keep the prosperity going.
Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook here without you telling everybody. I know you went to a Mavs game last night, and the Mavs have got a team, and they've got a fantastic player out of Europe, correct?
Yes, his name is.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I'm sorry, that name again?
Luka, Luka Doncic, Doncic. It's pronounced Doncic. He's from Serbia, and his statistics in the first 20 games of his career are only exceeded by Oscar Robertson.
Wow.
He has better stats in his first 20 games than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and a lot of other great players. And he's somebody to watch. They also have their number one pick last year is Dennis Smith Jr. from North Carolina State, who was only 19 last year. So now he's a 20-year-old.
Wow. So
the anchors of this team are 19 and 20, and then you surround him with Harrison Barnes from North Carolina and DeAndre Jordan, who just came over from the Clippers. And we've got the makings of a pretty darn good team for a while.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like they're definitely building for the future, and the future looks bright for the Dallas Mavericks. So if you're listening to this and if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, grab some tickets and go to a game.
Absolutely. They're exciting to watch. They're fun to watch. And Dirk hasn't even played yet. He'll be back in the next week or so. He's been out with his ankle, but he's about ready to get going. And, of course, Dirk's always worth the price of admission.
Absolutely. Well, Dale, I can't thank you enough for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We appreciate you doing it, and I wish you nothing but the best in all that you're doing there with the Dallas Chamber.
Well, thank you, Sandy. Thanks for the opportunity. Really fun interview. I appreciate it.
You bet. Have a great day. We'll talk to you. I'll probably bump into you somewhere.
That sounds great.
All
okay.
Right.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Bye-bye.